Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel. So glad to have you here. I hope you're all having a beautiful day. I am so excited for today's video because we're talking about a topic which I'm very passionate about, and that is hospitality. One thing that people talk about a lot lately is that there seems to be a loss of genuine friendships. And I really believe that a part of this stems from the fact that there's been a lost art of hospitality in conversational arts. Not only do people not entertain or not know how to entertain people in their homes, but they also don't really know how to have an intentional conversation with someone, which I do have a video coming on that. So yeah, I'm probably going to mention that a couple of times in this video, that I have a whole video dedicated to conversation and how to have intentional and open-ended conversations with those around us to build relationship. So the first thing we need to tackle is, why has hospitality fallen out of use? It's just not popular anymore. And I believe that this really comes from the fact that we live in a very self-focused culture. Usually when we have company to our homes, in the back of our minds, we end up just wondering when they're going to leave so that we can get on to doing our own thing, whatever it is that we're wanting to do with our evening. Binge a TV show or a movie or play video games, or maybe we're thinking about what work we need to get done. It's like impossible for us to live in the moment these days. And so even though sometimes we do entertain, our heart and our mind are just not there. In fact, even our homes are no longer built around the idea of being hospitable and entertaining guests. Picture with me most living rooms. Have you ever noticed how back in the day, living rooms used to be more conversationally set up, right? Like there was a circle of chairs facing the sofa and like creating this dynamic where people could sit and face each other and have a conversation. But nowadays, living rooms are set up with a sofa and maybe a couple of chairs, all pointed directly at a television. So you have wall and TV and sofa. And I mean, as fun as it is to get together with friends sometimes and watch a movie or play some games on that TV, you're missing out on so much if your home isn't built around the idea of being able to really have intentional conversations and build relationship with people. I guess you could say that our modern homes are built around entertainment instead of entertaining. So next I want to talk about why it's important to be hospitable. So we live in this very self-focused culture. Why is it important to get our eyes off of ourselves and entertain people in our homes? To answer that question, I have a few Bible verses. First of all, I'd like to share one that's a little more commonly known, and that is Hebrews 13:2. It says, "Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unawares." One thing that's really important to know about this verse is that it brings to mind that we should be ready to meet the needs and show hospitality to even unexpected guests who maybe we don't even know. It's one thing to host friends and family. It's something different to bring in and meet the needs of somebody that maybe you've never met before. Or maybe you're just getting to know them. And you never know, because some people have apparently entertained angels without knowing it. The next is Romans 12:13. It says, "Contribute to the needs of the saints and seek to show hospitality." So let's take a note on that. Seek to show hospitality. That means we don't just wait for the opportunity to knock at our door. We seek the opportunity to be hospitable. 1 Peter 4:9 says, "Show hospitality to one another without grumbling." So not only should we be hospitable, but we should also be glad to do so. The next one is taken from the book of Luke, and it is found in Luke 14:12 through 14. This is taken from the parable of the great banquet. It says, "He said also to the man who invited him, 'When you give a dinner or banquet, do not invite your friends or your brothers or your relatives or rich neighbors, lest they also invite you in return and you be repaid. But when you give a feast, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind, and you will be blessed, because they cannot repay you, for you will be repaid at the resurrection of the just. So from this we can take, though there is something so special about showing hospitality to friends and neighbors and our family that can pay us back and host us in return, there's also something so valuable behind reaching out and showing hospitality and giving to those who you know can't repay you or can't host you back. I think our lives should be filled with both, making sure that we invest and pour into those around us, those that are very close to us, but also making sure that we reach out to those that are in need and make sure that they have the opportunity to come be invited for a meal, and that you pour into them and invest in their lives and care about what they're going through. So now we see that God loves for us to be hospitable. Now let's go ahead and dive into the practical ways that we can live this out. One thing that's so important when you're inviting people into your home is to ask up front what are their allergies so that you can be aware. It would be very awkward and possibly dangerous if you prepare a meal or snacks and it may contain something that they can't eat and maybe they don't know. It also just shows people ahead of time that you care about meeting their needs. Let's talk about the tone that we set in our home for when we're hosting. One thing that we mentioned earlier is the way that our homes are just not set up anymore for entertaining. So maybe consider rearranging your home in a way, whether that's your living room or maybe you have a dedicated sitting room that is arranged so that people can face one another, have intentional conversations, and maybe even a table in the middle so that you can all get together and play card games when you're done with your conversation, or maybe before you dive into conversation. I think it's also important that we always make sure we have snacks and drinks on hand in case we end up having unexpected company. One thing that really helps when you're entertaining is to put on soft, quiet music in the background. I love to turn on Christian radio music and just play it quietly in the background. You don't want it to be too loud because you don't want it to be a distraction. In the same way, please don't let your TV be on and running when you have company. It's so distracting. Everybody's eyes are going to be going to what's going on the TV or listening to the TV. And again, your distraction is pulled multiple ways and you're not able to really invest into that relationship. But if there's music quietly going in the background, it sets a little bit of white noise so that people feel more relaxed, more at ease to be able to have conversations, but it's so quiet that it's not overwhelming and not going over the top of your conversations. There's something about music that is just very calming to people. One thing that's kind of fallen out of style that I still think is wonderful is having a guest book. Keep a guest book in the table near to your front door, so every time you have guests, they can sign their name and what was the purpose of their visit and what time did they visit, when did they visit. And it's just such a beautiful thing to look back on and like see how much you can fill it up in a year, right? Like how many times can you host? And I just think it's such a beautiful thing, and it kind of makes me sad that it's fallen out of use. A guest book is going to encourage you to have more people come because suddenly you're motivated to fill up this book. It's also a very intentional thing that when somebody walks into your house and they see that you have a guest book for them to sign, that your heart is in showing hospitality. Like, you love entertaining, you love hosting, and that is your desire, is to have them there, not only them, but other people as well. And it's going to make them feel more at ease in your home. Have your blinds open. This may sound really random, but it's never comfortable when you go to stay at somebody's house and all their blinds are closed and you just feel very trapped in. There's something just like so much more relaxing when those windows are open, and it just creates that peaceful and open environment. So going back to what I said earlier about how our homes are built around entertainment instead of entertaining, have you ever thought about how our homes are a reflection of our hearts? When somebody comes into your home, they can see what's important to you. It's kind of a really crazy thought, but it is true. And people are going to notice immediately when you entertain them how your home is structured. Is your home structured around entertainment, or is it structured around being able to be hospitable? So in other words, what is your priority in life? Is it entertaining yourself or pouring into the other people in your life? And again, if our home is set up in a way to entertain people, they're going to feel more at ease being there. When somebody shows up, the first thing that you should offer them is a drink. Hey, can I get you a water? Or would you like some coffee or some tea? That should also be applied to when they are leaving. Make sure that they are sent home with water if they need it, or maybe even some leftover snacks or a treat if you've made it for the visit. While you are entertaining, I think it is important that you talk more about the other person than you talk about yourself. It's also very valuable to ask open-ended questions instead of conversations like, how are you? I'm good. Oh, that's good. How are you? I'm good, right? It doesn't go anywhere. I actually have another video that's going to be coming soon that is about conversations. So stay tuned for that if that is something that you need help with. I think it's also important that we have fun card games or board games on hand. A group favorite is Apples to Apples. It's just a classic. One that I got recently is a card game called Monopoly Deal, and it is nothing like the actual Monopoly. It's very fast-paced and super fun, and it's pretty quick to pick up and play. The other cool thing about it is that if you have too many people to play one deck of cards, you can actually get however many decks of cards you need to fit how many people are there. Which means that if you have 15 guests, you could still play the game. There's another side of hospitality that I want to bring up in this video as well, and that is not only when we entertain, but when somebody else is being hospitable toward us and we go over to their homes. So one thing that seems to not be very big anymore, which I think needs to be brought back, is housewarming gifts. And this could be any number of things. This could be bringing a nice meal like a pie, or that's like the most generic answer ever, or maybe it's a house plant, right? Or maybe it's something that you know that they need, like there are just so many possibilities for this. But I do think that there's something so sweet in showing up to a friend or a family member's new home, or maybe a new neighbor who you don't know yet, and welcoming them in with that. So another thing that has fallen out of style is carrying in your plate and offering to help with dishes after a meal. Please, even if you are a guy, do this. It goes miles. It's just such a sweet and caring gesture. And it's something that I think every single one of us should be mindful of doing when we are guests at somebody's home. Be mindful of the hour that you leave. So I'm not saying like be there for a super short amount of time and then leave, but I am saying that if you notice that it's getting later into the evening, maybe you should voluntarily go ahead and start wrapping up the conversation, because people may not want to bring up the fact that it's around the time that they start getting ready for bed, or maybe start putting their kids to bed. And this saves from a lot of awkwardness for them, because they're not going to want to speak up and say, hey, I kind of need to start putting the kids to bed or something like that. And so this just removes that tension for both of you. And I just think it's the mindful thing to do. Prioritize arriving on time. Please don't be that person that is always late to everything. Now, I do understand there's grace for this, especially for people with babies and small children. It can be really hard to get out the door on time. But I mean, there are also a lot of people that are at a stage in their life where they can easily get there at any time. And if you arrive super late, it just shows that you do not prioritize the relationship with that person, and the fact that they're willingly opening up their home to you and intentionally trying to get to know you better. So my challenge to you is start being hospitable, right? Live out what the Bible tells us to do. This is a very exciting thing, and maybe it's going to be a little daunting the first couple of times if you've never done it, but trust me, it is just going to transform the way that your home feels. It's going to be so much warmer and more welcoming, not only to other people, but to you as well. And there's just something so special about when you've entertained people in your home, and your home suddenly holds all of these wonderful memories of people building relationship with one another. I will probably think of a million more things that I didn't mention in this video, but this is a topic that I'm very passionate about, and it's something that I'm so excited to practice in my own home. So, my friends, starting with us, let's bring back the lost art of hospitality. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!